Aloha, Gerard. Thank you so much for being my first guest on Love What with Audrey. Where are you tuning in from?
I'm tuning in from chilly New York City.
Brr. Could you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a native New Yorker. We're increasingly rare these days, but I've lived in a bunch of other places. I've lived in very cool places like Bermuda. I've lived in Asia. I've been around a lot. I had a long
Mm.
career on Wall Street. I've done a lot of other entrepreneurial things. I had an antiques business at one point. And now, as crazy as it sounds, I've become an actor in the last year or so.
That
So
is so cool. Well, let's start with investing. You said you had more than 20 years. I think you know a lot about investing in China as well. So I'm curious if you can say more about your latest episode. You mentioned something like how price drop is actually really bad for the economy. What does that mean?
Oh, thanks for mentioning and plugging the primary source China investment YouTube channel that Pengguo and I have done for the past 3 years. I had a long career in China and was managing Chinese denominated assets on the mainland in Shanghai beginning in 2008. What that means is prices that are going down, it sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
sure, who doesn't want cheaper stuff? The problem with that is it delays consumption, which means consumers will say, well, I'm not going to buy today because the price is just going to go down tomorrow. So this deflationary pressure puts off consumption, in turn makes manufacturers cut prices. And if anybody watching who's ever been to China, they
Hmm.
know price is a very powerful tonic.
Hmm.
So prices keep going down, manufacturers continue to be ruthless in terms of competition. That leads to what we said this week in our show was China needs more bankruptcies. As long as companies go under, then they'll have some pricing pressure because right now, as soon as I make anything, I make a new phone or I make a new iPod, iPad, whatever,
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to jump in, more manufacturers. So this increased competition, it's great for the consumer,
Yeah.
but it does have a bigger cyclical effect when there's supply side dominance. You're seeing that in China now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Does
Thanks
that make
for
does that make sense?
I'm not really, but it helps me to learn a little bit.
Just think of it as the opposite of inflation, right? We in the
Hmm.
US we had a big bout with inflation and people have less purchasing power.
Yeah.
The inverse to that is sure, I have more purchasing power, but I then stop purchasing because prices keep going down. And when prices keep going
Um,
down, and China's great at that, there's always this sort of race to the bottom,
hmm.
but that has a longer term effect, which means China is an export nation. So China continues to make more and more product,
Yeah.
which means prices continue to go down and down and down. So this
Yeah.
sort of economic phenomenon is what China's in right now.
That's kind of odd. I don't think I've heard that before. So thank you.
Yeah, deflation is a
It's
phenomenon,
real.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's very real. It's very real.
Let's pivot to acting. How did your career in investing contribute to your acting career? And how did you even get into acting?
Those are two very good and very different questions. So how did I get into it? Well, my son is an actor. So anybody who knows me, they know Anzi is everything to me, and he's been an actor. That's the only thing he's really been interested in. He's 24 now. He's a proper actor. He's in the union and all that other kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But how I got into it is I was always the reader for him. So when he does an audition, I'm the other voice off camera. And I was doing a very poor job of that.
Hmm.
And I figured I needed to get better to help him. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm not giving him anything. I'm just reading like a computer. No, I don't have any education in this. It's something you can learn. There's a story and an arc and character development. That led to a few acting classes. Once I started going into acting classes, I was encouraged, which was great, by all my very young um, and very enthusiastic classmates. So I started submitting on my wife's birthday, March 11th of 2024. That was the start.
And you've gotten a lot of experiences since then. You've been in TV, film, theater, new media, even a dance one,
Yeah, it's
and
it's uh,
modeling.
yeah. I say I think this is a good attitude in general in life is to say yes.
Mm,
If you read a lot of these, influencers on LinkedIn, they tell you have to say no more. But I think if you want to experience new things, you have to say yes more. You
mm,
you did ask another question about how my
yeah,
investment life has influenced my acting, and some of the things I've learned in acting class are very instructive.
yeah.
And the first thing I learned was just say the lines. Don't try to do anything. It's all in the text. But the second thing was there is no character written that is more interesting than a real human.
Hmm.
And everything in your life, your experience, you bring that to your character. And
Okay.
that's a very easy thing for me. So when I'm reading breakdowns,
Yeah.
it's lawyer, doctor, politician, investment banker. I'm like, well, I know these people. So it's not a big leap for me to read the lines. I just had an audition last night. I did it as a bad lawyer. I know bad lawyers.
What about mafia?
Yeah, there is a lot of mafia. I do have a lot of auditions for a very quintessential type of New Yorker,
Hmm.
which really doesn't exist. So guys that talk like this, hey, let me ask you a question, where we going? Those I get a lot of those kind of auditions, which is pretty funny.
Hmm. So you're saying you can reach in or reach down and search for some kind of connection with the character. What if it's really far out there? Let's say if it's a really violent criminal, how do you
Mhm.
play that character?
I'm a bit lucky. I don't really reach for those characters. So when I see a breakdown and it's like homeless crack addict, no, I'm not going to do that. Serial killer, no. Maybe there's something in me that could relate to that, but I find it very hard
Mm,
and it's just not that interesting or fun for me. The characters I'm reading for, they're they're pretty fun, even if they're
mm,
bad guys. There's
yeah.
a lot, in the media, not to get political, but the middle-aged white guys are all bad guys now. It's
Oh.
okay.
Mm,
I was just in a play where I was the mayor of New York. This character was not necessarily a bad guy. He was a conflicted guy.
mm,
Yeah, I think I understand that pretty well. So those are the kind of things that I'll go out for. I won't go out for serial killer, trapeze artist, just some things that are just off the wall. Yeah.
sure. And out of all the projects that you worked on, which one did you enjoy the most?
Because I start at the bottom, and I think it's great to start at the bottom of something, you learn a lot very quickly. I did a student film, and student films are all over the place. Some are great, others are not so great. And I did a student film, it's called Bacon and Eggs.
I
And
love that one.
yeah, it's just a 5-minute movie, but it's got a full arc, and it's got a plot you can follow. It's got characters you get to know, all in 5 minutes. I think the director Joshua was very efficient. I had a lot of fun on that set. We shot it
Mm,
in one day. I think the results are imminently watchable.
I
I think
liked
that's
it.
the one so far.
Yeah. And which one did you find most challenging or perhaps dislike?
Somebody reached out for background work. Now, again, I'm learning all of this. So
Yeah.
background work isn't really credited work as acting.
Yeah.
It's just a paycheck. How little it is, but it's a paycheck. So somebody reached out and said, "Oh, Sirens, which is a big Netflix show, needs background people." So I said, "Okay." They needed you for 2 days for this gala, and
Uh,
I got fitted for a tuxedo and everything, but it was a miserable experience. It was 14 hours of
that's a long
standing
time.
around in a tuxedo.
Wow.
It was not a great experience.
White tuxedo.
I was in a white tuxedo, which also raises the
Hilarious.
paranoia level. Yeah, you can't eat. Like, what are we gonna have for lunch? Spaghetti? Great idea. No. The other background actors were all very nice and
Mm,
welcoming and warm and everything. And I got to see a huge set. It was an
mm.
amazing thing at Steiner Studios in Brooklyn, a 35,000 square foot home that they built on a set in Brooklyn. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, Julianne Moore is there. It's really cool. That's
Yeah.
great. But standing around 14 hours in a ill-fitting tuxedo, not so great. So that was so far my best and worst. And there's been everything in between too. I won't
Yeah.
want to discount that. It, it's been a ton of fun.
How do you find gigs?
I like to joke. I like to joke with my son. My son has an agent. His agent just sends him stuff and he auditions. For me, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'm constantly looking for work because I'm non-union. I'm still at the bottom. which is totally fine. I get my auditions from Backstage and Actors Access. There's no student films anymore, so
Mm.
I've leveled up from student films, but there's a lot of non-union work, which doesn't mean bad.
What's the difference between union, non-union?
If you're a union actor, you can only do union shows.
Okay.
So everything you see on TV is a union gig. There
Really?
may be maybe some non-union actors on those shows, but for the most part, most of those actors are going to be union actors. Even just somebody who shows up for one or two scenes
Hmm.
and gets killed off.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are going to be SAG actors,
Mm.
Screen Actors Guild actors.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's cool.
yeah. So if you would wave a magic wand, who would you want to work with?
Wow, there's some great talented people, and I really appreciate the old school New York actors.
Mm.
And I would put names that might not be on the run, but there's an actress, and she played the wife of Tony Soprano, Edie
Oh,
Falco. I just
okay.
think she's such a great actress. Um, you know, people like that I would really love to work with. And she's done a lot of stage work. I prefer
Okay.
stage work over film work. Um, so, Al Pacino's, of course, because they all come from like this New York style of stage acting. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd get a small stage scene with those kind of actors. Yeah.
Hmm. What do you like about being on stage?
It's a lot like a team sport.
Hmm.
You don't want to let down your teammates. So you're preparing, and working together through rehearsals. But there's nothing that can simulate, they all say in football, there's nothing that simulates like live games. I feel that the same way. So I did a play
Hmm.
this summer, great play written by a very young playwright. It's live and things
Wow.
happen.
Yeah.
Stuff falls, things break, somebody misses a line. I just had a great experience doing that. Of course, I was paranoid and over prepared. Even with that, things are going to happen. And if you lean into those things, it can be a lot of fun. It's
Hmm.
unexpected for the actors, it's unexpected for the audience as well. Whereas when you're
Yeah.
shooting something for film or television, it's okay, we take a shot, we cut it. Take another
Hmm.
shot, we cut it. All right, we move the camera, we move the lights, 40 minutes later, we take another shot. Whereas a play, it's like, okay, curtain up at 8 o'clock and we go.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no stop, there's no pause, there's no cut. I like the tension that brings. I like the stakes.
Sure. And what about the audience energy? Does that feed into the performance?
Yeah, I did a staged reading on Monday and Tuesday. I played the mayor of New York City.
Yay.
Sure. Mayor Chip Weiler. Monday, it was a more subdued crowd. And Tuesday, it was just a very raucous crowd. They were just really laughing and really into it. After some lines in the play, they were like, boo. Just it was very interactive. And it was fun because at one point in the play, I address the crowd. I say, oh, my fellow New Yorkers, we're all struck with the tragedy of Hurricane Melvin, and somebody says something, and I say, but we are New Yorkers, and we'll make it through this. And then there's somebody in the play that says, you didn't do anything, you were playing golf while we were getting flooded. And then somebody in the real audience was like, boo, and I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, that was not, that was not scripted. So those kind of things make it a lot of fun. Those kind of
Mm,
things really make it a lot of fun for me. Yeah.
mm. So no real hackles so far.
No, that may come. I think the book that I read by David Mamet about acting is really instructive for me. There's a lot of people have a lot of theories and ideas, but what David Mamet said is if you want to know if you're a good actor, go get on stage.
Mm, yeah.
And I equate it a lot to sports. Like being on stage is a lot like sports. If you want to find out if you're a good basketball player, go to West 4th Street. There's a cage there. They'll tell you real quickly if you're good or not. And if you want to get better, go there every day.
Mm,
I feel like all of the audition work that I do is all training, and I'm
mm.
totally fine with it.
Wow, that's great. And
Yeah,
how,
but don't forget, I don't have to make rent
yeah.
by acting, which is
Mm,
very different than my son, who
mm.
has to make rent. So it's a very different heuristic, if you will.
And how has your relationship improved with Anzi now that you're an actor?
I tell everybody that listen, if you have kids and you want to maintain a relationship with your kids as they get older, you better share their interests because they
Mm,
are not going to share your interests. I'm into watches and college basketball. Anzi does not care about those things at all.
mm,
I make an effort to listen to his music, to read his books, the things that he's interested in. And if he wants to make a career out of this, I should take an interest in it. And, I
mm.
think I'm pretty much waist deep in this right now. I don't think I dipped a toe. And it's been
Oh,
great. We chat with each other about, hey, what do you think about this guy? Or, hey, how do you think, what does he mean by that line? We deconstruct a lot of the audition work. He was doing an audition a couple of weeks ago. I went to his place because we were going to record at his place, and he
yeah.
had this outfit on. I said, that's not the outfit for this audition. He said, yeah, what do you think? This is what a Boy Scout wears. My son's never been a Boy Scout, so it was very obvious he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But,
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that we share together. It's a ton of
Mm,
fun.
mm. Can you tell me more about the love being a parent? Because I knew someone, he's a poet, and he said he thought he hit the full capacity of loving until his son was born. Then his heart just cracked open even more, and more love came out. I'm really curious because you're the dad of the millennium.
That's me. My wife always wanted to have a baby in the year 2000. She said we have to have a son in the year 2000
Okay.
because it's a golden dragon or
Yeah.
something. I said, okay, we'll do that. In my head, I was just like, yeah, fine, that'll happen. I was very casual about it. Not because I didn't think children were important. I just thought it would be just like getting a new sofa or something.
Really?
I didn't, no, I didn't really clock the enormity of it.
Yeah.
And on August 26th, year 2000, he was born via C-section. And you know what happens in the
Yeah.
C-section? They hand the baby to the father because they have to stitch up the mother.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I go over that moment in my head many, many, many times. It
Mm.
was an absolute game-changing moment for me. My priorities immediately shifted. What I had to do for the rest of my life changed
Yeah.
in that moment. It was crystal clear. And I'm
Mm.
sure a lot of fathers feel the same way.
Wow. I think you're one of the coolest dads I've ever met.
I don't know about that, but I have a really cool son. If I was 24, had my own place in New York City, walked around telling everybody I was an actor, my life would be pretty good too. So
What does love mean to you?
I don't think I'm going to do as good a job as Shakespeare or even Barry White with respect to that. But I feel like love needs to be active. It's a constant feeling, and you have to constantly give into it. It's not about doing things, it's about understanding the priorities that you have for yourself and for other people. The first requirement for love is you have to love yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people I meet that don't love themselves, and they are seeking love from others without loving themselves first. And I think love, first and foremost, is a very selfish notion.
Mm.
And that may not be popular, but if you don't love yourself, you can't love other people. So you
Mm.
have to be very comfortable with yourself. And once you're very comfortable with yourself, you can be open to love from others. To me, that's what love is all about. And
Mm.
there's the little things. There's the anticipation, there's the wanting to do for others. All of those little things come from love yourself first, be open to love from others. To me, it's pretty simple.
Mm. What's loving yourself?
I'm an adult, I make decisions, and I don't apologize for those decisions. And that may be unpopular. For me, that's about loving yourself, making decisions that are good for you
Yeah.
because you have agency. I hear a lot of time everything is bad. Well, you have agency. You can change that. Look, in your mid 50s, you can become an actor. So I don't want to hear it from anybody. You are in control of your own destiny.
Mm.
I really believe that. That self-love leads to confidence, and that confidence leads to action. And you don't have to go from 0 to 100, incremental steps, all of this self-help stuff. It's very obvious to me. And I think that's why I've always had a lot of confidence. I've always been willing to try new stuff, and I've always been willing to fail. And failure is
Mm.
absolutely part of that. It's not a bad thing.
Well, it's part of the learning experience, so you can get up and get better next time.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I
Mm.
was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. She is a serial entrepreneur, very successful. She was building this startup and she was giving me an update on where they were, and it didn't work. So it cratered. Okay. And I said, I think you have to figure out the difference between quitting something and recognizing that something is over,
Mm,
because that's a fundamental difference. People say, oh, don't be a quitter. Well, sure, don't quit, but also recognize when something's over, because not everything lasts
yeah.
forever. It's okay. It's like jobs. We've all had jobs and they don't last forever. We have to recognize when they're over. I'm not learning anything anymore. I've done everything I can here. There's no career opportunity. It's over. It's like, Donald Trump made French fries for one day. He's done. He knows how to make the fries at McDonald's. So no, I mean, that's it, right? In its simplest form. You have to
Mm,
recognize the difference between the end and quitting.
yeah, just walk out, no regret.
That's exactly right. You have agency, and this confidence comes from self-love. I truly believe that.
When you are not connected with self-love, what do you do to reconnect with your authentic self?
I hate to be so gendered, but I think men are more creatures of habit than women. There's a lot of positivity there, there's a lot of negativity there. I feel like my male friends, I know where they are. I know
Okay.
what they're going to do. I know their habits. I'm just like that. And if I get out of my habits, I'm not comfortable. I'm not
Mm.
happy. I'm a gym rat. I go to the gym every day. If I'm traveling, I try to get a workout in, pick a corner and do yoga. I'll go for a run. So I feel like that brings me back to something that I'm very comfortable with. It's very mundane things. I like to go to the gym. I have a very strict diet. I don't like too much volatility around that.
You mentioned that you do yoga. How long have you been doing that? And how does that help you in your daily life?
Yoga is the cheat code to life.
Really?
Seriously.
Mm,
I tell anybody that will listen, it can be very intimidating. I go to a yoga club and there's a lot of super bendy, super strong, and a lot of women, and it can be very intimidating for even people who are fit.
yeah,
But you have to be confident. Say yes to things, start something new, see something through. Yoga, it's helped me so much because I don't get injured. I have more flexibility and mobility. I'm able to lift more weight than I
yeah.
used to. I just think it's great. I'm not really into a lot of the spirituality around yoga. So I know that's a bad thing to say, but I I
Don't
do I
apologize.
do like everybody's very much into that. I'm not so much into that, but I do think it's a fantastic way to improve yourself. I really like the fact that it's called a practice.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
something that really relates to me because there's no destination. It's just constant improvement. Sometimes you get better, sometimes you get worse, but
yeah,
that idea of a practice makes a lot of sense to me. It's
yeah,
not a performance. I'm not going to the yoga finals. No, I'm just
yeah.
practicing yoga. Yeah,
Mm,
it really works and fits in to my other, weight training and cardio. Yoga
mm.
is a piece of that practice, definitely.
What I love the most about yoga is every time I'm on the mat, my body doesn't lie. I'm in that moment. I'm who I am. I am like,
The cool thing about yoga, at least for me, is you really have to pay attention. If I don't pay attention, if I'm in half moon and my mind goes somewhere else, I'm going to fall.
yeah.
That's a fact. You can lift weights and listen to music. You can run and your mind will wander. But in yoga, for that hour, you are completely present with what's happening. Otherwise, you
Mm,
will fall. I think that's a great mind body connection that a lot of people don't get
mm,
an hour at a
mm.
time.
Wow, that's so beautiful. You also really love reading books. Why is it important to read books?
Through graduate school, I read because you have to read these books. And I didn't start reading for pleasure until I was out of school. I really came to appreciate how beautiful some people can write. I can't write like that. And I just have a
What do
huge
you mean? You
appreciation.
write articles and they're published everywhere.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's not creative writing. That's
Okay.
just utilitarian writing. I do enjoy unplugging from everything and just laying down with a book. Now it's kind of weird because I have to read all these scripts and I read a lot of plays, which is fantastic. And they're quick. It's shocking. A play is about 90 or 110 pages, somewhere between
Yeah.
that. You're supposed to read it in one sitting. It's a good indication if it's a good play, if you can read it in one sitting. If
Yeah.
you're fighting to read it, like page 11, you're like, oh, this is terrible. That's a good indication of whether it's a good play or not. It's such a sweet thing. I have a book club with fellow actors.
Oh,
It's
that is
just the
sweet.
coolest. It's the coolest thing. And we read acting books. It's so much fun. And it's like a little support group. We all like, what did you go on? What did you audition for? And it's just a very small but very loyal group of fellow actors. I feel great to sit down with them every other week.
Yeah, having a small community is important.
It's just so funny because everybody in my acting class, they all came from an acting background.
Okay.
Some of them did it in high school or they've always thought about being an actor. And I walk in and I'm the old guy. Like I said earlier, they couldn't have been more supportive. It's been fantastic.
Wow, that's great. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
I really think about love a lot. And it is just breaking that down into yourself and others. I think
Mm,
it's a very simple concept that many people miss. There's no harm in focusing on yourself.
mm,
As soon as people get more comfortable with who they are, don't make excuses for that. If you're a good person, you don't have to make excuses for who you are. If you're a good
mm,
person, then you should love yourself. And if you love yourself, you will find a lot more love. You'll
mm.
find loving friendships. I'm so proud of the adult male friendships I have for
Yeah.
so long. And that's real love because with friendship, there's nothing in return. If you
Mm,
get married and you have a spouse and there's something in return, oh, we have a family and we build something together. With friendship, it's just the connection. I have a cohort of friends for decades. My oldest friend I know since the second grade.
wow,
We talk 4 or 5 days a week.
that's a lot.
It's very special to me. I love him to death. It's just an incredible feeling.
Do you tell them that you love them?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
but you're shaking your head.
Well, absolutely.
I'm giving you a
Yeah.
hard time.
No, I'm saying, how could you not do that? That's why I'm shaking my head. It's like,
For a
of
minute,
course
I
you have
thought
to
you were
tell people.
Indian.
Yeah, my goodness, you're gonna have to cut that. Uh, People are so afraid of those feelings, and a lot of time when people think of male love, it's like this taboo thing, and it shouldn't be. It
Mm,
absolutely shouldn't be. It's
yeah.
about being there for your friends. It's about sharing your life with your friends. What can be what can be better than that?
Mm,
The final thing I would say about it is what you give out comes back to you times two.
mm,
So
mm,
if you're pushing out good vibes, good feelings, positivity, that's going to come back to you two times.
mm.
I know a lot of people, they get caught up in politics, they get caught up in a lot of things that they can't control. I don't really go in for that. I'm more about, what do I have agency over? And then
Yeah.
I try to be positive about it.
That's so great. You're one of the most generous people I know. Thank you so much for coming on. Aloha.